Step right up. Climb aboard. The caravan is waiting.
The Moth and the Flame. The potholed road curved beneath a pale dusk sky, unremarkable in the way terrible things often begin. For some, the open road was freedom. For others, it was a runway to their ending. At the edge of the asphalt, something dark lay tangled in the grass. Whatever it had been was no longer clear. Fur and flesh were matted together, torn open and pressed flat by passing tires. Swarms of flies gathered in the summer heat, feasting on the warm rot of the roadkill. Two turkey vultures worked at it patiently. One stood hunched over the carcass, wings slightly spread, head buried deep, pulling free strips of meat with slow, practiced tugs. The other tore and swallowed, never lifting its eyes. A third circled overhead, drifting in wide, lazy loops. Cars passed. A pickup slowed, then sped up again. A sedan swerved just enough to avoid the birds, its tires whispering over the edge of the lane. No one stopped. No one looked for long. The vultures did not hurry. They would finish what was there. They always did. The road narrowed as it carried on toward the hills. A white Pontiac Fiero tore down Route 19, 20 miles over the limit, bearing down on the feast. Inside, laughter came in bursts that were sharp, barking, and mean. The kind that made cats disappear from sight, dogs to perk up, and kids to stop chewing their gum. Kenny Wood couldn't help himself. He'd been laughing for miles now, ever since the voice on the radio said they'd caught someone for Kirsten Hale's brutal murder. The announcer sounded pleased as he delivered the news with a specific sense of certainty and calm.
Police took a suspect into custody earlier this morning. Authorities believe the arrest brings the first step towards closure to the brutal killing of 26-year-old Kirsten Hale, described by friends as kind, generous, and deeply loved. We'll have more on this story as it continues to develop.
Not questioned, not investigating. Caught. Kenny slapped the steering wheel and laughed harder.
Poor bastard,
he muttered, cigarette bouncing between his lips.
Wrong place, wrong goddamn time.
The laughter sputtered, slowed, then kicked back up again, uneven, mechanical, like an engine that refused to die. The white Pontiac Fiero tore down Route 19, streaked with back-road filth, bumper hanging low like a broken jaw. Heat pressed in through the open windows, thick and sour. Kenny took a long drag and held the smoke in his lungs longer than he should have, enjoying the burn before letting it go out of his cracked window. Up ahead, he noticed a turkey vulture drifting in the sky above as he imagined the suspect, some drifter, some nobody, sitting under fluorescent lights, hands cuffed, mouth opening and closing, trying to pull air that suddenly felt expensive. That was the thing people didn't understand, Kenny thought. Everyone walked around believing the next breath was guaranteed. It wasn't. Some people were always going to run out of air. The radio clicked into music, the Rolling Stones, something about shelter, something about storms. Kenny drummed his fingers on the wheel, tapping time like the world owed him rhythm. Scot-free, he thought. Something struck the windshield, bringing a halt to his latest fit of laughter. A soft, wet tap. Kenny blinked. A fat, white moth had burst against the glass, leaving a dusty smear. Its wings twitched once, then stilled. He stared at it longer than he meant to. The road bent suddenly. He yanked the wheel, tires screaming, the car fishtailing before settling again. Gravel spat up from the shoulder as the white Pontiac drifted off the road and then snapped back again. Something heavy hit low, not a crack or a crunch, but a wet, hollow thump that traveled through the frame of the car. The Fiero bounced once and straightened out, the engine whining before settling back into its familiar hum. Kenny breathed out a sharp laugh.
Jesus,
he said, shaking his head. He glanced in the rearview mirror. The side of the car was streaked now, dark red smeared across the white paint, feathers clinging where the body must have spun free. The road behind him was empty. He didn't slow down. The moth slid away into the air, gone as suddenly as it had appeared. Behind him, the last vulture folded its wings and dropped from the sky. It landed beside the carcass, stepping through scattered feathers, still drifting in the heat. Black feathers brushed against blood that hadn't yet cooled. The bird lowered its bald head and fed without hesitation. Kenny wiped at the glass with his sleeve, even though the dust was on the other side.
Fucking bugs are out tonight.
A rest stop and a quarter-mile sign flashed past, and his bladder gave him the signal. He pulled off the highway without thinking about it. The bathroom smelled like piss and bleach layered over something older, something that never quite went away. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering just enough to make the room feel unstable, like it might slip sideways if you stared too long. A single fly looped through the air, tracing the same invisible circuit again and again, trapped in its own pointless ride. Kenny stepped up to the urinal and relieved himself, eyes fixed on the stained wall inches from his face. He yawned, jaw cracking, and strained to coax out the last stubborn drops, clenching, relaxing, until a thin hiss of gas slipped out of him, sputtering like an engine running rough. He grinned.
What's that?
He said aloud.
You thirsty?
His hand slipped into his pocket and came back out with the heart-shaped locket. He didn't open it this time, just let it hang from his fingers as he pushed out the last few spurts. Warm metal, careless aim. He shook once, twice, and zipped up his jeans. The locket went back into his pocket, wet and forgotten. In the mirror above the sink, his face looked flushed, shiny, wrong somehow, like one color of the world was missing, though he couldn't put his finger on which. He washed his hands, then washed them again, wiping his face with the cold water. As he patted his face dry with a paper towel, he could hear someone snoring in the last stall. It was a wet, rattling sound, deep and careless. Kenny glanced over. The stall door hung crooked, offering a glimpse of bare calf, pants pooled around ankles, shoes pointed inward like the man had folded himself wrong. He was older, with puffs of white hair and a big beard. Kenny moved quietly. He knelt, slow and deliberate, and slid the wallet from the man's back pocket. It came free without resistance. The snoring didn't change.
Thanks, Santa.
Kenny hummed to himself as he thumbed through a small wad of dollar bills while exiting the building. Outside, the air felt heavier, humid, the kind of heat that clung to skin and refused to move. Kenny tapped his breast pocket and found his pack of Lucky Strikes. As he stood there, a bug slammed into the Pepsi machine's glowing panel. Once, twice. Each impact made a dry, hollow tick. Another joined it, then another. Pale wings smeared dusty half-moons across the plastic cover. One flew too hard and dropped to the concrete, twitching, legs curling inward as if pulled by a string. Kenny watched them for a moment, taking a few slow pulls from his latest cigarette.
What's with the goddamn bugs tonight?
He muttered. He inhaled deep, then flicked the cigarette down and crushed it under his heel before it was halfway gone. Kenny kicked the Pepsi machine. The moths burst away in a frantic scatter. He grinned, fed 2 quarters into the slot, and punched root beer. Moments later, he was back in the car, taking full-mouth gulps of the root beer, eyes bulging as he swallowed too fast. The Fiero rolled onto the road, engine humming beneath him. No destination, no schedule, just Kenny, the open road, and the locket heavy in his pocket. After many miles and cigarettes, the road narrowed and funneled him into a small town in West Virginia as midnight crept closer. A bar called The Last Stop sat across from a motel, their lights facing each other like old rivals. The parking lot held signs of life, motorcycles, a van, a couple of cars idling in the dark. Kenny's eyes stayed fixated on the yellow bar sign that was buzzing with bad light. Kenny craved a cold beer, so he parked and went in. Inside, the air was stale with beer and smoke. A ball game muttered on the TV above the bar. He took a stool and ordered the cheapest beer they had and a basket of fries. A woman 2 stools down glanced over at him and smiled through a thin veil of cigarette smoke. Tired eyes, easy laugh. She wore a semi-revealing black shirt and a mini-skirt.
Passing through?
She asked before blowing cigarette smoke out of the side of her mouth.
Something like that.
Kenny said while sipping his beer. They talked. Nothing important. He liked the way she watched his mouth when he spoke. Liked how close she leaned when the jukebox flared to life. Liked how easy it would be. For a moment, just a moment, he thought about taking her across the road with him. Not for what she expected. He imagined leaning close and telling her something small about how he'd killed Kirsten Hale. Just enough. A detail. Something that would tilt her smile and drain the warmth from her eyes. Ruin the easy heat between them. Scare her. Give her something she'd carry for the rest of her life. He reached into his pocket and took out the locket, letting it rest in his palm. He didn't open it. Just looked at it. The woman noticed.
You married?
She asked. Kenny kept his eyes on the locket.
Marriage?
He said.
What's that? 2 people standing across from each other, exchanging rings? That's just a show.
He rolled the word around in his head before choosing it.
I like to get intimate. Close. Closer than what an empty promise on an altar could provide. No. I've been chasing something deeper than marriage with women. Women are special.
His eyes widened slightly as he broke his trance and looked up at her.
Intimate.
The woman repeated back to him with her chin resting on her hand.
Intimate in ways married folk never do.
He finished his beer, left a crumpled dollar on the bar, and wiped his fingers on a napkin as he stood. The bartender's back was turned. Kenny leaned forward and reached over the counter, fingers closing around a bottle of whiskey. He tucked it under his arm and straightened, already turning away. Kenny gave his newfound female friend a single wave. When he was young, he'd have done everything in his power to take her back to his room. But he was older now, and he preferred the power of leaving a woman wanting more. The woman watched him longer than she meant to. Her smile didn't quite fade, but it loosened, slipped at the edges, as if something in the air had gone thin. She opened her mouth, then thought better of it. Kenny turned away, pleased by how easily she'd already become something finished. Outside, the neon buzzed overhead. Bugs swarmed the light in a frantic halo. Moths battered themselves against the glass, wings whispering, leaving pale dust behind. Kenny paused beneath it, listening.
You gonna fuck me in one of those rooms or what?
Kenny jumped at the voice behind him. The woman had followed him out of the bar. She reached past him, took the bottle of whiskey from his hand and drank. No hesitation, no apology. Kenny grinned. He liked the confidence.
I'm afraid not, miss.
She laughed, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand.
What? Am I not hot enough for you or something? You finish that bottle with me in a room, and I will be.
You wouldn't like the things I do to women like you.
Kenny said, her eyebrows lifted.
What's that supposed to mean?
Kenny brushed her cheek with his fingers, almost gentle, then closed his hand around her throat.
Just take my word for it.
He said quietly.
You couldn't, and you wouldn't, handle these hands.
She didn't look away. She took the bottle back, swallowed a mouthful of whiskey, and held it there. Then she leaned forward and spat it full into his face.
That's for choking me, Mr. Intimate.
Kenny blinked, whiskey running down his nose, stinging his eyes. He watched her heels click away into the dark. After a moment, he crossed the empty road toward the motel. The moths kept beating themselves against the light. The motel sat close enough to the road that the neon glow of its sign spilled across the cracked pavement. Half the sign was dead. The letters that still worked buzzed and flickered, stuttering like they were trying to remember what they were supposed to say. Kenny crossed the road without hurrying. Before going into the office to pay for a room, he stopped beneath a streetlight and smoked a cigarette. The light kept going out, coming back on, then dying again. Each time it flared to life, moths filled the cone of yellow glow in the night. Dozens of them, maybe more. Their wings brushed the air softly as they circled the bulb, colliding, separating, drawn tight to the light like it was the only thing holding them there. When the bulb went dark, they vanished. When it came back on, they were there again, dancing, patient. Kenny watched it all as he smoked, the ember flaring between his fingers each time the light returned. When he was finished, he spat the cigarette from his mouth and crushed it beneath his black boot, grinding it into the pavement with a slow turn of his weight. The office smelled like dust and old paper. A bell sat on the counter, its brass dulled and worn smooth. Kenny tapped it once. The sound came out flat. The clerk appeared from the back room. He was thin and quiet, his eyes unfocused in a way that made it hard to tell what he was looking at. He didn't ask for a name, didn't make conversation. Kenny slid a bill across the counter.
A room for the night.
The clerk took it, turned, disappeared through a door behind him. He returned a moment later with a receipt, some change, and a key. A plastic tag hung from it. 6. Kenny took the key and left. The door to room 6 stuck when he unlocked it. He shoved his shoulder into it and felt it give with a soft pop. The smell inside hit him immediately, bleach layered over mildew and old smoke. The air felt stale, unmoving, like it had been sealed for a long time. He flicked the light switch. Nothing. The lamp by the bed came on after a few tries, throwing a weak yellow circle across the room. Cigarette burns dotted the curtains. The carpet was thin and gritty beneath his shoes. Kenny cracked the window open to air out the room of its musty smell. A warm breeze entered the room. Kenny knelt by the sill and stared at a tear in the screen. He pushed a finger through it, widening the hole, stretching the mesh until it gave.
Fucking dump.
He muttered to no one. Kenny dropped onto the bed without taking his boots off. The springs groaned in protest. He lay there staring at the ceiling, chest rising and falling. The last of his laughter finally burned out of him. When he shifted on the mattress, something tickled the bare skin of his wrist. He glanced down. A small dark shape moved along the sheet, legs working quickly. He brushed it away against the wall and lay still again. The TV snapped on with a burst of static. Kenny frowned and reached for the remote, but the screen had already settled into a local news broadcast. The volume was low, almost polite.
Authorities continue to investigate the death of 26-year-old Kirsten Hale.
The anchor said.
Police have confirmed that a suspect is now in custody, though details remain limited.
Kenny turned his head toward the sound. They showed her picture, a good one, bright, clean. Kirsten Hale smiling into the camera, hair tucked behind her ear, eyes warm and open, the kind of photo families chose carefully, the kind meant to remind people who someone was supposed to be. Kenny watched without expression. He began unscrewing the cap on the bottle of whiskey he'd stolen from the bar and took a swig. The anchor kept talking. Neighbors, church, community. Words stacked neatly on top of one another, sanding her down into something easy to mourn. Kenny felt his eyes grow heavy. The room hummed softly. The lamp, the TV, the faint buzz from somewhere inside the walls. The air felt thicker now, pressing gently against his chest. He closed his eyes. The screen continued to glow, light pulsing faintly against the walls. The anchor's voice softened, blurred at the edges, words slipping into one another. The lamp flickered. The television shuddered with static, then both steadied again. In his mind, the apartment came back. The lamp, the stove, the way the air had changed. Kenny's mouth twitched, almost a smile, as sleep claimed him. The television drifted between worlds, snowy static, the distant reporting of a woman's death, and somewhere in the gaps, a preacher shouting scripture that felt far away, distorted, and easy to ignore. For now. He was already moving through the apartment, the same steps, the same low lamp glowing in the corner, the same yellowed wallpaper lifting at the seams. The pot on the stove rattled softly, lid trembling, threatening to boil over. Kenny stood where he had stood before. Nothing felt different. Not yet. Kirsten Hale was there, alive, breathing, looking at him the way she had that night, confused, uncertain, still trying to decide whether she trusted him.
Kenny?
She said. The sound of his name moved through him like a pulse. The space between them closed without either of them meaning it to. His hands were already on her before he remembered deciding. Her back struck the counter. Drawers rattled. The pot hissed as soup spilled onto the burner, steam filling the room. She didn't scream. That was what struck him, even now. Her mouth opened and his name came out instead. Thin, useless.
Kenny, don't...
His hands closed around her throat. Her skin was warm, softer than he expected. Her pulse thrashed beneath his fingers. Her breath hitched, short, shallow gasps that whistled faintly. Peppermint clung to her skin, sharp and clean, even as her body began to fail. Her hands clawed at his wrists, weak, slipping. Her eyes widened, not with terror at first, but confusion, as if she were waiting for him to stop. The air thickened. Each breath cost more than the last. Kenny leaned in close and watched her chest stutter, fail, then try again. Her body struggled to remember the full shape of air. He felt no urgency, no doubt. It always went this way. People believed air was something you couldn't lose, that it was constant, reliable. Some people were always wrong. This was his favorite part. The face, the moment when understanding arrived, when fear gave way to knowing. Her grip loosened. Fingers slid from his wrists. Her body sagged. A small sound slipped from her throat, more breath than voice. Then there was nothing left to take. The room went quiet. Too quiet. The lamp flickered. The walls stretched, thinning like paper held to light. The floor softened beneath his feet. The apartment peeled away. Black grass pushed through the linoleum. The stove, the counter, the walls. All of it sank, replaced by a wide open field beneath a sky without sun or stars. Kenny looked down. His hands were gone. In their place were wings, pale, delicate, veined in black. They moved when he thought to move, answering without resistance. Ahead of him, Kirsten stood again, whole, unmarked, dressed in white that stirred faintly as if touched by a breeze he couldn't feel.
You can't bury guilt.
She said gently.
You feed it.
The ground began to hum.
I'm not guilty.
Kenny said.
I got away with it.
Above them, the sky thinned, cracked. Light bled through. Then it opened. Moths poured down. Thousands, tens of thousands, falling like ash after fire. They covered him, his face, his chest, his wings. They filled his mouth, his ears, behind his eyes. He tried to scream. Wings pressed down his throat. Powder coated his tongue. He swallowed without meaning to, again and again, feeding something vast and hollow inside him. The moths kept coming, and Kenny took them all. He woke choking, not coughing, choking. His body snapped upright. Air tore back into him in ragged pulls. His throat burned, raw and tight. Something fluttered. He gagged and spat onto the carpet. Foam, nothing else. The room swam. The yellow light smeared into soft halos. The television was still on. Kirsten Hale filled the screen, smiling, bright, alive in the way photographs always were. The kind chosen carefully, the kind meant to last. The radio crackled. A preacher's voice burst through the static, furious, unrelenting. Kenny reached for the whiskey and drank, hard, trying to wash away the phantom sensation of wings scraping his throat. It worked. He took another gulp, just to be sure. His hands shook as he lit a cigarette, the flame flaring too bright in the dim room. He drew deep, willing his nerves to settle. And that was when he saw them. Moths slipping through the tear in the screen, one after another, drawn straight to him. He ducked instinctively, stumbled backward, and his heel caught the edge of the carpet. He fell hard, mouth open in a sharp, panicked breath, and a thick, pale moth flew straight into the dark gape of his throat. Kenny hit the floor choking. His body convulsed, the same burning, wing-filled suffocation clawing back into him. Just like when he'd woken, the bottle of whiskey tipped from the table and shattered. Liquor spread across the carpet, dark and shining. The cigarette slipped from Kenny's fingers and rolled beneath the bed, its tip still glowing. The flame foundered. Fire leapt. Moths began entering the room through the hole in the window screen, their wings blackened by smoke, circling wildly through the heat. One remained white. It drifted down and settled on Kenny's face, right on the bridge of his nose. He crossed his eyes, focusing on it. The fine dust clung to its body. The wings trembled. For a moment, another image surfaced, the windshield. The rest stopped, the soda machine buzzing beneath a tired light. He smiled. With what little strength he had left, Kenny raised his hand and struck. The moth burst. Ashy powder and soft ruins smeared across his forehead, warm and gritty. The remains clung to his skin, an ugly, crooked mark he couldn't wipe away. A blessing of his own making. Kenny laughed once, thin, broken. The heat surged. The preacher kept shouting. On the television, Kirsten Hale kept smiling, bright, calm, untouched by the smoke. From the glow of the screen, a single moth lifted free. It became the last thing Kenny's eyes would ever see, taking flight from Kirsten's face on the television screen. The moth was pale, clean. Its wings caught the light as it drifted forward, crossing the space between the television and the floor, between what had been done and what still remained. It flew low, unhurried, as the flames reached for it. Fire licked the edges of its wings as it passed through the heat, drawn onward, unwavering.
I knew you had the flame in you!
He rasped, smiling through the pain.
You crazy, filthy bitch!
The flame-lit moth approached and came to rest on Kenny's face, right where the woman's spit and cheap liquor had dried less than an hour earlier. Fire climbed his pants, found his shirt, then his face ignited as the fire-winged moth flapped atop his skin. He screamed, while the television flickered between static and news and static, and the radio preacher raged across the airwaves about sin. The flames sang with them, a choir raised for him alone. His chest rose once more, shallow, uncertain, then fell. Nothing followed. The room burned, and Kenny Wood burned with it. Amongst the ruin, the moth's white wings darkened to a deep char. The moth had found its flame.
And God says, what you feed will grow. And one day, when you are sure you're safe, when you are sure you've beaten it, God says it will rise up and consume you. So be sure you understand me. Be sure you don't mistake mercy for absence. Be sure you don't mistake silence for forgiveness. Be sure your sin will find you out. Be sure. That's not me saying it. It's Him. It's God. Be sure. Be sure you understand me. Be sure you don't mistake mercy for absence. Be sure you don't mistake silence for forgiveness. Because God says this, every man thinks he's the fire. Every sinner thinks he's the light. Thinks the world bends toward him. Thinks the heat is proof he's chosen. But God says, you were never the flame. You were the moth. Drawn by what you loved, pulled by what you desired, circling closer again and again, calling it freedom while your wings were already burning. God says the moth does not rush the fire. It drifts, it lingers. It convinces itself the warmth won't hurt this time, until it does. Until there is no flight left, no distance left, no night left to hide in. And God says, I did not push you. The flame was there the whole time. You came to it, so be sure. Be sure you remember this when the heat feels familiar. Be sure you remember it when the light feels kind. Be sure your sin will find you out. And when it does, when the fire finally takes what it was always owed, remember this, the moth always finds the flame, and the flame never has to chase. Be sure. Be sure.
Thanks for watching. I hope you were scared to death. If your heart's still beating, like and share. And if you dare, subscribe for more delicious horror. We'll be waiting, right here in the dark.